So it's the Christmas break right now for the Ontario Hockey League, but some broadcasters at other levels are still right at it, and that includes John Bartlett from Rogers Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada. And he also used to be a former play-by-play voice of the Barrie Colts. So thanks for coming on the channel here today.
My pleasure, Mike. Good to talk with you.
And it's been a bit since you were with the Barrie Colts. Has much changed since your days here in Barrie?
Yeah, yeah, a little bit, that's for sure. So when I was still with the Colts, Molson Park was still an empty field. And let's see, what else would be different? The scoreboard was two previous versions ago, I think, from the video screens that you have now, and probably a few other things as well. Barrie's grown a little more as a city too, but so yeah, a few different things, I guess, going on since then.
And for Barry, that's where you kind of got your feet wet with the whole broadcasting gig. I understand it started by mistake when you were 15, doing play by play, but then you ended up doing games with Rogers in Barry. Is that how it all started for you?
Yeah, in a long roundabout way, I guess so. Yeah, I had started, as you said, when I was 15. I was just doing a AAA game where I was there only due to the music, and Rogers TV was there to televise the game, and the crew that was supposed to show up and do the game didn't show up. So they asked me, "Do you want to come down and try doing it in the booth?" I'd been the PA announcer for the Newmarket 87s and Hurricanes at the time, so I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it." So that led to my first game of doing play-by-play, and then that awarded some opportunity to do some more work with Rogers TV when it came to minor hockey tournaments, and then that led into doing Junior C Bradford Bulls games, and then Junior A games with the Hurricanes, and so that sort of all led up to the point where I started doing some work with Rogers TV, and then in Barrie, I started doing, I guess I think I started doing a little, maybe a little bit of work on the news first, if I remember. But I started getting into a couple of the Colts games as a host, and then a fill-in play-by-play. And then it would have been in the '01 or '02 season. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head when I started doing Colts games full time. That sort of led to what was a 5-year run in the OHL, and a great time in Barrie. And yeah, really getting your teeth kind of cut with everything that you needed to do in the OHL, and that led to the opportunity where I would end up going to the American Hockey League with the Marlies in Toronto. So, but I look back at that time with the Colts and doing all those games very fondly. So it was actually, it was a pretty interesting time. That was just really on the edge of the OHL Action Pack starting for Rogers, where you started to be able to see games in other markets. And when we did the 2002 OHL finals, the Colts were playing the Erie Otters, and the action pack wasn't to the point where it is now, or where it got to at least. So it was new. When we did that final, it was the first time Rogers TV had produced a game outside of Canada. And we had paired up with a production company in Erie. We had a satellite truck brought in to do those OHL finals, and we had an agreement where the show was going on both sides of the border. So even the fans in Erie were watching our show from Barrie in that OHL final back in Erie. And it was quite you look back at it now and it seems simple with all the technology we have. But back then, that was really sort of groundbreaking stuff for Rogers Television to do at the time, produce a full game outside of Canada. But it really was also sort of something that led to the action pack where fans were able to watch games in all other markets. So pretty kind of cool time that we were right on the cusp of starting something new with the OHL.
And I was going to bring up that 2002 run because I came across some old footage on YouTube of your calls there doing the series. For that run for the Barrie Colts, is that like one of your highlights of your career, being able to follow along with the team going on that championship run? I know they fell short against the Otters, but still having that chance to call a final like that.
Yeah, it was really cool, and for me especially, that would have been early in my what you want to call OHL career too. So to have that opportunity it was really cool and really special. And I think at the time, as I said, knowing that it was being a little groundbreaking and we were doing stuff that hadn't been done before, I think that was probably something that was nifty about it. And I remember. You're right. It would be a memory, especially the OHL. You do hundreds of games, and can you remember any few? I remember the overtime winner in Erie. I know Jeremy Swanson hit the crossbar a minute earlier, and had that gone in, the series was coming back to Barrie. It would have been a whole different ball game. But then Jan Platil goes down to block the shot. It goes off his leg and over David Chan's pad and in for the overtime winner and the series winner. And the Otters were close to being onside. That's what I remember about the goal, and then the celebration afterwards. But one of the other stories I remember about then was doing the final. It was on a game day, I think, and I was out for a walk in the city and in Erie, and I went into a convenience store to get a drink, and maybe I was looking at the newspaper article, and they were talking about the game that night and the ticket sales and the scalpers. It was pretty crazy at Tullio Arena. And the convenience store person recognized me. He said, "You're the guy doing the hockey games right now. You're from Barrie, right?" I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, how's it been here?" He said, "It's unbelievable. You go down the street on a game night when they were on the road, when the games are in Barrie, and every TV and every bar had the game on, and it's packed and watching." I thought, "Oh, that's kind of cool for an OHL team in Erie, in the championship series, that it was like that." So I think that's where you kind of really had a sense of what we thought we were doing on the Canadian side was big and something new. But then to go to Erie and understand this was new and big for them, that they had the opportunity to watch the games that were going on in Barrie on television, and they really rallied around it too as a community. So I thought that part was pretty cool. I remember that for sure. Yeah.
And it's probably similar to what's happening right now because the Saginaw Spirit getting ready to host the Memorial Cup. So, here in Ontario, we take the OHL. I don't want to say for granted, but it's something that we go to, we take our family to, and we don't really think too much about the American teams. So when you get a team like Saginaw hosting the Memorial Cup, I'm sure the experience is going to be similar to what you experienced when you were in Erie.
Yeah, and every community kind of takes the team their own way too, right? And it's similar. Actually, I've just talked about this recently too, even with the NHL, and where we in the hockey world in Canada, we live sort of in a little bit of a bubble where there's other markets outside that they may not be as old or as historic. Their fan base may not be as large, and maybe even not as knowledgeable in the intricacies of the game, but they're still great fans that support their team and have a great time at the games and put on a great atmosphere and show of support in their market. So that's the same for the OHL too, right? You get into a situation like Saginaw that's going to be really excited to have a chance to have the Memorial Cup there, and that'll be a big event for them. And so yeah, it's going to be a special time for them to remember. And having the Memorial Cup in your community, in your city, in your town is something that you'll remember for years. You'll talk about for years. Even talking to former junior players now, they always talk about that experience of either a championship or the Memorial Cup, and what that whole party was like. Because now, of course, it's a whole festival. So that's the one thing. Unfortunately, I wish the city of Barrie had the opportunity to host, was the Memorial Cup. I know they tried a couple of times. I was involved in one of those bid processes, and I really thought they would be able to get it. And the plans that were laid out would have been amazing around Kempenfelt Bay and everything that would have happened for the Memorial Cup. And Barrie certainly deserves to host the Memorial Cup one day. It's unfortunate that they haven't been able to do it just yet, because it is such a special party.
Yeah, and with hopefully plans for the arena renovations can transpire because yeah, when you get the Memorial Cup, it's this big community event, and let's talk back more about the junior players because being a broadcaster, it's a unique perspective. Watching the game, and you also had time in the American Hockey League with the Toronto Marlies before you ended up broadcasting games in the National Hockey League. So for you, seeing the players develop, as a broadcaster, that also must be pretty special.
Yeah, it was, and I think you get to see them at different levels, and you remember how they've progressed, and maybe a reminder too of how difficult it is to jump level to level. So, for me, Brian Little was a Barrie Colt, so I got to see Brian go from being a rookie in the Colts to getting to call him in the NHL with Winnipeg. It's ironic you catch me in Winnipeg right now. Mark Scheifele's still here. Didn't have him with the Colts, but a Colts connection here when you think of Brian Little, Mark Scheifele, that had played here. Michael Hutchinson came through Winnipeg at one point as well. So the Jets and Colts have a little history there, and the Atlanta Thrashers too in that time span. But yeah, getting to see some of those players that came through junior and then getting to see the progression, some of them to the NHL, and some of them maybe not even to the NHL, but had a crack in the American Hockey League, and seeing them get a few games in there, that's always kind of cool. Where you see just to see that opportunity and see the progression as players, and um, not even just with Barrie, there would have been players in other teams too that have made it on. And I sometimes I get asked, who do you remember? What players have you called through junior that when you saw them back then, you thought, oh, they'll be a good player? And one that always stood out to me, I loved watching Eric Stahl with the Peterborough Petes when I did Pete's games. He was such a complete player, both ends of the ice, and I thought, that's a really good hockey player. And yeah, and sure enough, he's gone on to have a great NHL career. So Eric Stahl's one that always stood out for me too.
And now you've done over 500 broadcasts at the National Hockey League level. Does it get old at all doing these games, or are you still just excited as you were the first time you called a game?
Yeah, no, never gets old. I think, and there's still new experiences to have too. That's the other thing. Like I said before about going into different markets. It's so fun to experience different cities and how the fans take to their team, and even how what the game, the atmosphere in the building's like, what the fan experience, what that's all like. I think that's always fun too. So yeah, it doesn't get old. It's National Hockey League. It's just fun. It's a great honor to be able to do games and work on Hockey Night in Canada, and every Saturday is always special because of that. So you used to think back to when I do Saturday night games in Barrie, right at the Molson Center at the time, but that was our Hockey Night in Canada show then, and even doing a Saturday night game then in Barrie always felt a little different than doing any other night of the week, because in Canada that's Saturday night. So we always had a little extra. It seemed to be on our Saturday shows just for that. But so yeah, I mean, from that aspect, I think you still live that, each and every game. You still have that little kid in you, if you will, of that. So you never want to lose that joy of doing a game. That's for sure.
So, out of all the different markets, which one stands out as maybe your favorite arena to call a game from?
All 7 Canadian ones. No, yeah, everyone always says. So everyone always says, "What's your favorite city?" And I have to preface that by saying, for what? Because there's different categories for everything. So it depends what you're talking about. But if you want to say what's the best building to call a game in, for the booth and the atmosphere and the hockey, in Montreal, the Bell Center is incredible for that. You just where the booth is, you're right on top of the game, and the atmosphere. It's always special. For the same for the players to play in Montreal. It's special to do a game in Montreal. So that one is great. But that being said, there's also a lot of other great markets that have some really good facilities, and there's some really good fan bases where they're really enjoyable too. Tampa, I love doing games in Tampa. I think Tampa is a great market. The fans are good there. The hockey's exciting to watch. Great building. Madison Square Garden in New York is always a treat. Anytime you get to do a game at MSG, that's another kind of special rink in the league. And then there's other sort of markets that are just the atmosphere is a lot of fun. Whether it's Vegas or Nashville, I think that they provide their own kind of entertainment. That's always cool. And then the fan base. Like,
Mhm.
there's nothing like going to do a playoff game in Winnipeg in the whiteout.
Yeah.
It's something to experience. It's a special thing on its own. So every city really has its own kind of unique element to it that's great about it. But yeah. So, but when you're talking about, when you're in the booth and what you're looking at, Montreal is the way the booth was designed and where it is. You're right in the action. You're really on top of things. So that one is certainly probably, and it's probably at the top of a lot of broadcasters lists too. Detroit did a good job with Little Caesars Arena. They tried to copy some of the aspects of Montreal for that. So they're pretty good for that too. The way the seating is close to the ice
Yeah.
and gives you that kind of atmosphere. Yeah.
And have you done a game at Mullet Arena in Arizona yet?
No, no, no. I did a lot of American Hockey League games and junior games and rinks like that. So to do an NHL game and one like that now is kind of ironic. I haven't been to Mullet yet, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see. That experience apparently is a unique one for many reasons. I don't know if it's one that you want to have for a long time, that's for
Yeah.
sure. But yeah, it certainly has been a from everyone I've talked to that have done games in there, unique is probably the way they like to put it for that.
And what's really cool is that outside of doing the broadcast, you also have a real cool initiative where you bring accessibility to playgrounds. Can you touch a bit about that, how that got started, and how it all works?
Yeah, so we started a nonprofit organization called Very Inclusive Playgrounds Canada, VIP Playgrounds, and it really stemmed on the idea of trying to bring all-inclusive playgrounds to Canada, where we don't have them at the level that we could or should. And we partnered with a group out of St. Louis called Unlimited Play, where they've worked on about 100 projects now across 17 states. And so I've done a lot of work with them, and we're right now in the process of bringing the first Unlimited Play playground to Canada, and we have our location and our land and our design and everything we're ready to go with. And we're working right now on securing some corporate sponsors and also some grants and everything that comes all with a project like that of this magnitude. A lot of these projects are sort of done on a small scale for communities, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to do a great premier showcase playground that'll be something that can be used as a gold standard for across Canada. So it's a pretty big project. It's been a while in the works here. A lot of stuff being done in between games to work on it, but it's pretty exciting. And we'll get to a point soon where we'll be able to share all the details with the public, and I know that'll be exciting for everyone. But yeah, it's that's been pretty rewarding to work on that the last while and partner with Unlimited Play, and I've done some stuff with them in the U.S. as well. And so we've kind of worked together on helping projects on both sides of the border and build these all-inclusive playgrounds that are well beyond anything that you've really seen before when it comes to accessibility and going just beyond uh, having no barriers, but being able to get people in mobility devices to the highest points of the structures and touching on all different elements for kids who are on the spectrum, for visual and hearing disabled, and there's so many different elements to it, and it's really exciting, and they're very very special places when you get to go visit them, the Unlimited Play playgrounds. So we're really looking forward to the day where we can share it all here and build the first one in Canada and let everyone experience the magic of play.
Oh, that's incredible, and it's really cool to be able to follow along on your socials just with the campaign. So, real cool that you're able to do that outside of hockey. And John, I appreciate you doing this today, and enjoy the rest of your trip in Winnipeg.
Yeah, thanks very much, and hope the Colts keep rolling along. So hi to everyone in Barrie, and go Colts, go!
So that's John Bartlett, the play-by-play voice on Rogers Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada. It's always cool to touch base with fellow broadcasters, even at the other levels like the National Hockey League, because the OHL, it's a development league for not just the players or the coaches, even broadcasters who eventually make their way up to the professional ranks. So it's really cool to hear John's story and to touch base and even to take a bit of a trip down memory lane to the 2002 championship between the Barrie Colts and the Erie Otters. So, that's it for the interviews for 2023. I'll be doing an update video probably tomorrow, but where this channel is heading next. And remember to always put down your comments if there's something that you want to say or talk about. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe as we continue to look to do more videos like this, interviewing former members of the Barrie Colts in one way or another, and also current broadcasters. So again, thank you very much for all your support and tuning in, and we'll talk to you again soon.